is responsible for the growth of Tech Mahindra's cable, media, and entertainment business in Americas. In addition, Sumit is also responsible for few top strategic global accounts growth as a special charter for the company. After a successful stint of jumpstarting CME business in Japan, for which he was based in Tokyo, Sumit has relocated back to the US and currently lives in New Jersey with his family. Okay, I think I've covered everyone. Sumit, the mic is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Astrid, for that great introduction and setting the stage. Good day, everyone. I hope you and all yours are safe and healthy. I'm Sumit, your host. And in case you did not notice the 5G, IT, and ER in the name, please look again. Do call us for any 5G technology and engineering needs you may have. It gives me great pleasure and a deep sense of honor to host such a special panel on our show. I'm truly excited to have these eminent guests with us today, and I can't wait to hear from them. Thank you, Adrienne, Mimi, and Kathy, for joining us. Friends, from initiatives like Nanhi Kali, empowering the girl child through education, to a flagship career development program where stars are identified, we call it FAME, Female Achievers in Making, the inspiring women have always been just around the corner for us at Tech Mahindra. I'm particularly proud to share yet another accolade that got awarded to us for being one of the top best workplaces for women by the Great Place to Work Institute. I feel privileged to welcome all of you lovely audience to this last episode of our season 1, directed and produced by our most exciting business at Tech Mahindra, the cable, media, and entertainment business, where we offer experience, technology, and engineering solutions from glass to glass through innovative people, products, platforms, and of course, possibilities. I promise this was the last piece of commercial advertisement in this event today. We do have a perfect topic to end this season 1 and setting the stage for our upcoming season in the next year. So this session will also be a sneak peek in the next year while ending this season on a high note, the job market of 2021. The pandemic, the way we live, work, play, and how we prioritize all these one way or the other. Early in the year, I did hear someone said, oh, COVID's like the chief digital officer of our industry. While it resonated with many, I now believe that it has also given us a unique opportunity to be the chief digital officer of the $1 million question is, how can we continue to leverage this situation, making the most out of it? To answer many such questions and share deep, valuable insights, industry HRs with us today. While I'm sure you all will love to hear the guidance and experience of Kathy, I must highlight and applaud Mimi, who's representing so many of us on the show, being so brave and putting herself out there, seeking guidance on your and my behalf. I'm a fan, Mimi. Welcome to the show. With that, here's to the women who forged the path, mentored others, and created a voice for those who didn't have a platform. Let's kick it off with none other than our very own Debbie Menin.
Thank you, Sumit. I love the chief digital officer of our own self. I wanted to first start by saying and acknowledging the fact that between Adrienne, Mimi, and Kathy, we're all friends. I think you'll pick that up in conversation. So there's going to be a nice organic relationship here. But I want to talk, if we can, about survival of the fittest. And what does that mean? First, we want to talk about relating to the job market and the new environmental conditions. But if you actually look up what the definition of it means, it's really in nature, it tells us everything. So, okay, the organisms best adjusted to their environment are most successful in surviving. We all know it's also known as the process of selection, which works by giving individuals who are better adapted to a given set of environmental conditions an advantage over those that are not as well adapted. So what I hear about that is that there's two things. One is the environmental conditions and the one other is adapting. So let's apply that to our session today And to keep it relevant, let's first start talking about the environment. And I was wondering, Adrienne or Kathy, could you talk to us about some of the top trends you see in the media and entertainment tech space today going forward and potential market conditions in the future?
Sure. Good morning. Thanks for having us. Kath, why don't you go first?
Okay, I'm going to speak up. I'm hoping I'm not getting the same feedback that I'm hearing. So is that sounding okay, John? Okay. You know, there's no question that COVID has pushed us into what we knew was coming all along. And I'm going to call it the fourth industrial revolution. And we all know that that's been coming. Then COVID came and so many things hit the tipping point. So in our business of entertainment, obviously the infusion of technology we've known about for quite some time. That's great for a lot of people on this call today because you have been in technology careers. So congratulations if you saw that coming, got a degree in technology and have a job in technology. You are in good shape. For those of us who do not know how to code or who have not applied our trade in technology, we have to start thinking about learning it because everything is now infused with technology. And that has caused a major consolidation in the entertainment business because everyone is moving towards streaming. And that's been coming for a while. You guys have seen it, but as with so many businesses, it takes a while to jump in. And so a consolidation of the corporate infrastructure has happened, as you can see in many of the major studios, and an infusion of technology jobs has happened, which media studios have had to learn how to hire, and an explosion of content has also happened. And I think all of that is tremendous if you can figure out how to pivot into this new world that we're living in.
And we have to also understand, as Kathy said, there has been a digital transformation. I mean, this morning in the news, I heard that T-Mobile is now creating an application for kids to meet with Santa Claus. That's all part of the digital transformation. We have people working from home. So iCloud has become a really important thing to manage organizations. Think about WhatsApp. Think about Zoom. 2-3 years ago, nobody knew about it, but it's all part of this transformation. And we should look at that. We should pivot, as Deb says, to think about new and innovative things. Climate change, the environment. Those are the things we've got to look at.
Thank you, Adrienne. So I think what we're going to do today is bucket two different topics. One is for the people that are working. The other is for the people that are looking for a job. So let's start out with how to survive in this difficult time if employed, okay? And I think it's important to talk about becoming indispensable. And the other word is adaptable. So yes, we know it's a scary time right now, even with a job. So Kathy and Adrienne, can you give us advice on what you and we should be doing to make ourselves indispensable at our current company?
Raise your hand. Raise your hand and volunteer for some of those projects that nobody wants to apply themselves for. That is how you're going to get recognized.
And I think on that note, right now is not a time to be extremely picky about what you will and will not do. You may need to broaden what you're willing to take on, and it might not be something that's all that fun. And I sometimes tell the story of, you know, in 2016, when I was at NBC Universal, actually it was 2014, payroll was something that wasn't working quite well, and everyone complained about it. I've never run payroll before, but I raised my hand to take a shot at it, and I ran it for the next 2 years and fixed it. And I bring that up because there is no way that I wanted to be running payroll, but I worked myself into it. I learned a new way of doing things. I was able to have a transformation story from that. So even if it doesn't sound like something you want to do, you can use that to market yourself. And so look around, what's not getting done. And as Adrienne says, raise your hand and try to figure out how taking something new on might make you either more indispensable, which we all know is an interesting word to use, might make you look more adaptable, and also might make you more relevant.
You know, on that note, Kathy, you're talking about being adaptable to change, and you just gave a good example. But can you elaborate a little bit more about being adaptable and how do you show that?
Well, right now is no time to be stuck in the old way of doing things. And if you are not getting yourself up to speed about how your world has changed, or frankly, how it could change, I think everybody should be working 5 years ahead. I mean, don't stay in the present. You need to know what's going to happen with AI, VR, robotics, automation, all of the things that have not yet hit their tipping point, but are coming. Don't think that today is going to last. You're going to have to pivot into another technological shift at some point in your future. If you can speak that language now and start preparing people for how that looks in your role or how that looks for your business, you're going to be ahead of the curve and frankly sound even more relevant. So I would say live in the future, make the future, and be that voice that rallies everyone to getting around change. Be a change management leader.
Talk about COVID for a minute. If it proved anything, we know it proved that it's about the survival of the fittest here. But one of you said something about thinking yourself as a business. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, what you have to do is you have to, as Kathy said, rally the troops, but you also have to find allies. You have to find people that think like you so that you can build a robust organization.
And on that note, I'd like to add, you know, I was at Warner Brothers and now I'm not at Warner Brothers. I went in to work very closely with the chairman who I had a relationship with from NBC Universal. He was my advocate. When he was let go, I was let go. And I bring that personal story to you because what I would have done differently had I looked back on my last year and a half there, I would have built more advocates for myself outside of my immediate group. I think another very good survival technique is frankly to build a lot of people who are in your corner. Let them know what you are doing to make the business successful. Cross lines, because I went into Warner and there were silos, and that is what we were trying to break down, but we were still operating within our own silo. So it's good to look across the way and make relationships in other areas of the company as well, because you never know in this consolidation who you're going to need to be aligned with. So create advocates across the company, not just in your area or your function.
That is such profound advice. I'll take it personally as well. Let me ask you a little bit, or Adrienne, if you could talk about your personal board of directors, which takes that concept to another level.
Yeah, it does take it to another level. What that means, people that you know have your back. You know, the gentleman that Kathy worked for, he's on Kathy's board of directors. And that means that they're going to be advocates for you. And I am astounded at times when people are so apprehensive about picking up the phone and calling those advocates and telling them what you're doing, or ask them for advice of other opportunities that they think you should look at.
Well, I like the idea of thinking yourself as a business and also having your own board of directors. I think we're getting somewhere today. May I ask, how do you stay relevant and ahead of the curve right now with, let's say, continuing education or other ways? Do you have any good advice?
Yeah, be on every podcast that you possibly can and be on every webinar. Do continuing education. You're right. You may have time on your hands, and it is a wealth of information, just like the internet is.
And I'd like to add to that. I think going and getting further education is a really good idea. When I was in the job market in 2018, I went to get my executive coaching certification. And that not only gave me a story to tell, but it gave me a new certification that mattered. Now I just signed up to take classes at Cornell. Not necessarily, and the classes are advanced employee relations. I mean, after 25 years, frankly, I think I can claim that. But that certification allows me to put Cornell on my LinkedIn account. So I did that on purpose. And it's really important right now in a tight labor market. And I'll tell you why. In a tight labor market, you will be competing with more people for a job if you're looking, or to stay internal. People are going to have to make decisions based on your profile versus someone else's profile. If you have certifications, if you have gone out and stretched your learning and learn new skills and are able to talk a new language, that could be the difference between you staying at the company or getting that job, or someone else staying at the company and getting that job right now, because they don't have a lot to choose from right now. Meaning,
I remember
they've got to make their decisions based on facts.
I was over at Warner Brothers and I saw a plaque on someone's wall, and it was an advanced degree in artificial intelligence. And he did that at night while he was working. And I said, that was brilliant. That was 2 years ago. So talk about being ahead of the curve here.
Right.
I agree wholeheartedly. All right. I want to talk about a 360-degree view and owning your own. Do either one of you want to talk about what that means?
Yes, it's assessing what skills you have, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and yes, I guess you could go out and buy a package, but you don't have to. If you go back to the concept of your board of directors, your advisors, they can give you honest feedback if you ask them for that.
Yeah.
Good point.
And
That will help
do
you.
think it is tough to ask for that feedback, but the reality is that if you choose people you trust and people who will be truthful with you, you can take that feedback and pivot your skills, pivot the way you're talking about yourself, pivot the way you're marketing yourself. And if you're not looking at yourself as a product right now or your own brand, that's going to hold you back also. And as we sort of started this conversation, it's really, how are you presenting yourself as a package? And everything counts right now, internally, and if you're looking for a new job.
Well, I love it. We've got a new business, we've got a board of directors, and we are now doing 360-degree reviews. So I'm going to pivot for a minute now and talk about surviving in the marketplace while you're looking for a job, okay? And I want to introduce our special guest star today, Mimi Slavin. She was formerly, as you heard, the head of marketing partnerships at Dreamworks, which is actually when I first met her. She's been unemployed for quite some time now outside of consulting. It's been hard for her to find a full-time job. I know there's people in the audience today that are probably in the same position. So the thought is how do Kathy and Adrienne help Mimi reposition herself and repackage herself for her to find a job that, in her words, would be fulfilling and rewarding? So let's think of Mimi today as a representation of anyone in the marketplace that's actually looking. But just as a quick background, Mimi still doesn't feel like she's up to speed in digital marketing. She's taken courses. She doesn't feel that it's practical experience, which makes sense. She is not fully comfortable with the meaning of digital transformation, what that means and how to apply. She's been overqualified for jobs. She's been underqualified for jobs. So let's talk today about Mimi, but let's start by saying, in Mimi, since you've been looking for a while now, could you tell us what job market conditions have changed in the media and entertainment space?
Sure. I mean, for me, because the majority of my background is straight entertainment. I was at a blockchain company most recently, which was a pivot for me into tech. But when I decided that I needed to look for a full-time job, which I kind of started in January, and I really thought that it would be something in entertainment because I felt like that's where I had the most value, because I had the most experience. And as we know, the pandemic hit, and all of these big entertainment studios are shedding jobs. and they don't seem to be hiring in the same proportion for streaming as the number of people they're letting go. And I'm really at a crossroads right now, and really looking for Adrienne and Kathy to, to sort of help me kind of understand what I need to do to be able to look at something different, because I don't think that the kind of job that I've had in the past is going to be available to me in the future. So,
well, thank you for that. Adrienne and Kathy, do you want to jump in on how the market has changed? The job.
I'd like to say that what Mimi just said about what she's doing now might not be something she'll be able to do in the future. That's true of people who are currently employed as well. So you may see changes in your own job. And that's what I meant earlier by, do your research, understand where your function is headed, understand what's going to happen 5 years from now, and start thinking about how you're going to pivot your skill set now. Mimi's there out in the job market right now doing that, because she did get a job at a blockchain company, which I think is quite impressive. And, that's not easy. And a lot of people don't understand blockchain. But I understand from previous conversations with Mimi, it's not something she really enjoyed as much. So it might not be something she wants to do, maybe pursue another role. But I think the language of blockchain, understanding how to talk about it in her interviews, doing more research and reading on the companies and how her skill set, frankly, in partnership marketing is going to match what these other companies are doing is, shockingly, most people don't do enough research. I'm not saying this is Mimi, but enough research to be able to talk about their skill set in a way that matters to the company that they're sitting down and interviewing with. And just a real quick story, I did the same thing. It took me 3 to 4 to 6 months to figure out that my story wasn't important unless it spoke to what the company I was interviewing with was actually hiring. I went in and told my story the way I wanted to tell it, not the way the company I was interviewing with needed to hear it. And I think that takes a forensic look at all of the bullet points that you're on your resume and saying, okay, how does this one align with this company? How does this one align with that company? That's very important to put that kind of thought into it.
Do we need to hire an accountant to help us?
No. I had a client in the last year who was an executive, a sales executive for a newspaper company. Talk about, boy, that business has sure changed. And he, along with many others, were laid off. He was laid off. And he believed so much in environmental change, and COVID hit. And he was introduced to a company that manufactures kiosks for restaurants and grocery stores and you name it. And he went to these folks as a consultant, and he translated what he did for the newspaper company with this organization. And now their sales have just skyrocketed. He is now full-time, and he's head of sales for this company.
I just say I used to run the entertainment strategy at Parade magazine that was delivered in a newspaper, and I knew that I had to get out of that business. So I ended up with a job with a huge, massive pay cut to go work at AOL to run their entertainment strategy so I could do a deeper dive into digital. And that was quite some time ago. And it's one of the best decisions I ever made. But I invested in myself by taking that cut, but I needed to do it. Mimi, do you want to take a second and tell us, being realistic, what is it that you really want to do?
Well, ideally, it's funny because I've had, a number of months to kind of think about this. And some people say, oh, you should sort of script out your dream job. I have not been able to do that. I loved my last gig at Dreamworks, and I would love to find something in partnership marketing. But I realistically don't believe that that's going to happen for me at a studio. So I'm wondering, how do I take the skills that I have as a partnership marketer, someone who's made lots of deals, worked with lots of different companies, and how do I leverage that into something else that would help me in other industries? Because I'm open to other industries.
So let's further that, Kathy and Adrienne. Let's talk about resetting, rebranding your skill set, and maybe keep Mimi in mind. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. Mimi has a phenomenal resume. She could be in consumer goods marketing. She could work for the cosmetic companies. She could work for packaged goods. She could work for a variety of companies, even in her own community. And I think that's all part of the research that Mimi should do.
Well, and on that note, the forensic look at what Mimi brings to the table requires some thinking as it aligns with the various industries. So, pardon me. If Mimi has partnerships marketing experience, which, by the way, many industries, like Adrienne just said, they need that. And I think looking at some of the things, some of the clients that Mimi has brought in to work with an entertainment company. So at Dreamworks, because I was there too, consumer products was king. And, there were deals made with Mattel, with McDonald's. I'm just using a few. That's partnership marketing. How do you look at where you have actually had ties in those consumer products companies? And how do you say, look, I understand your business because I've been in partnership marketing at an entertainment studio. I want to come in-house to now build partnerships for you with media companies where I have an incredible network.
I like that, Kathy. Yeah, I like that a lot. Let's talk about that and also utilizing LinkedIn for your job search. So let's say she wants to do that. How do you use LinkedIn to help you?
LinkedIn, this goes back to leaving no stone unturned and making sure that everything you are doing right now, you've tied up every gap. It's crazy, but Adrienne and I did our research before this, and we did talk to some search firms, which I realize only work at the executive level. But shockingly, at the executive level even, people's resumes do not match their LinkedIn account. So you've got to make sure that when you are presenting yourself on LinkedIn, it matches what you're presenting to your potential employer on your resume. Shocking, but it actually happens. It's all about how you're packaging yourself. And by the way, with LinkedIn, which is one of the greatest apps of our time for job looking, there are jobs posted there. You can see who you are connected to. You should be accepting every invitation that makes sense for you and looking at who your connections are in common. That is sort of job hunting 101. But one thing that you could also do is look at Instagram and look at Twitter. And Instagram is a place where people actually promote themselves and you can actually see what their businesses are. So don't forget the other forms of social media as well, which are often overlooked when it comes to job hunting.
That's a good piece of advice. I haven't thought about Instagram or Facebook that way.
I actually want to things, Kathy, that we talked about prior to this, and I thought was really important is, you said that when you first were on LinkedIn, you were really selective about when people would reach out to you. And we talked about the fact that you kind of had a change of heart in that, and can you sort of advise me to unless it was something really, really random and totally not germane, to be more open to accepting requests from people that you don't necessarily know personally, because it builds the network. And I thought that was really good advice.
Well, and it reminds me of some other advice that I often give. And I did this one year when I said yes to absolutely every invitation that I got. And I don't mean just on LinkedIn, I mean in life. And by opening yourself up to saying yes, it is really astounding what can happen. You will meet people you never, ever thought you would meet. You will be invited to things you never thought you would be invited to. So this whole concept of just being open to the universe right now is really important for people who are looking for their next job. And back to the LinkedIn accepting of invitations. Yes. And what will happen sometimes is people will pitch you. Okay. So I accept I accept almost all invitations now. So hopefully you guys on the phone will send
Go at it.
invitation. But oftentimes I will get pitched some business because I accepted that invitation. But if I were looking for a job right now, what I would do is when someone sends me that pitch, I would say, look, I'm no longer working at Warner, but why don't we have a chat anyway? And let's think about how I might be able to help you elsewhere. And what this really points to is this whole concept of, and I always steal it from my friend Keith Ferrazzi, co-elevation. If you are out there networking, it does not all have to be about you. You meeting them, you trying to get a job from them, you getting favors from them. This is a co-elevation opportunity for you. If you help others right now, how it makes it a lot easier to ask them to help you. So why don't you approach networking, and I'm saying, this to everyone on the call, as how can I be of service to you? That is one of the best ways to network because people will greatly appreciate that. So consequently, I take pretty much all calls. I spent an hour on a call yesterday with a guy who just wanted my opinion about a couple of opportunities he's looking at. Don't know where that's going to lead for me, but I spent the time and I was happy to do it. And you never know what could result from helping others.
On that note, Kathy, it also is obvious, at least to me, that when you're in the mode of helping others, you have such a positive attitude. And let's face it, it is tough times right now. But when one has a positive attitude, it expresses that through their actions, and people will pick up on that. And that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
I think right now having a positive attitude is more important than ever, but let's be real for a second. Mimi, your inner warrior, do you want to talk about it? And how have you stayed motivated and positive, and have you?
Well, I mean, that's definitely been a struggle for me. And I think that I would not be surprised if other people were struggling with that. It's hard to stay positive in this environment. It's more challenging to network. It's more challenging to find a job, as so many, because I'm tied to Los Angeles, and all you keep hearing about is all these layoffs. So I would love to hear from Kathy and Adrienne some thoughts that they might have on how do you stay positive in the face of so much, so many forces, and right now, like with so much unemployment, so much stress around the virus. I just kind of get up and start each day and try to think the best. But if Kathy and Adrienne had any thoughts on how to get into that positive headspace, that would be fantastic.
Walk your dog early in the morning and just think through the day. 1. 2, I'm an advocate of meditation, and I think that is really important. People have said to us, it's really hard for women right now to, maintain a job because they have to take care of their family, and they have to take care of work, and they have to go to the grocery store and all that. That is absolutely true, but turn that around. If you're in a conversation with a future employer, turn that around by saying to them, look, this is what I have done to maintain a healthy environment with my family and my job. And I think that translates to, I can meet those challenges. Think of it, turn it around in a positive way.
And I want to challenge you, Mimi, and I feel like I can do this because you and I have known each other for a long time too.
Yeah.
There are 2 things you said that I want to kind of shift the frame of that. It's harder to network during a pandemic when everything is virtual. I'm going to challenge that because I think what has happened, frankly, and this was true when I was leading my team at Warner as well, I was more focused than I've ever been in my life because I knew that from 9 to 6, I would be sitting in front of a screen and I would have meetings and nobody would pop into my office and I would not be distracted by the phone. Everything was virtual. And we've actually, in doing our research with recruiters, we've had recruiters say, actually, funny enough, people seem to be more available right now or more willing to help. So I think we should challenge that and see if it's actually the case. But don't let the fear that people might be sick of Zoom, be that phone call for them instead of a Zoom call. Ask for 5 minutes instead of 15. Ask for, just for them to send you back an email, anything like that. So I think I would challenge the idea that it might be harder to network.
And also, what about asking somebody for tea, like a virtual tea? What I've been doing a lot of are walk and talks. Ask somebody if we can get out of your house and go for a walk and talk on the phone together. So there are ways to get around it.
Well, and I think empathy right now is very important. So everyone on this call that has a job, think about being empathic and helping someone else right now. You are lucky. You are employed. How are you reaching out to help people who aren't? And I think that we need to start a movement because everybody needs this right now. We all need to help each other. So let's count on that happening. And then the other thing that Mimi said that I'm going to challenge is you're locked into LA. I agree, I'm locked into LA too. But lots of companies have now said that you can work from anywhere. Right. And that's going to be sustained after the vaccine has made its way to everyone's arm, as they keep saying on the news, more in the arm. So let's think about that. You might be able to get a job because of your stellar background with a company in Denver that's really growing and exploding right now because they're a tech company or an entertainment company. And they have said, we're okay with people living in wherever they want to live. So I would also try thinking about, hey, who's growing, who's hiring, and don't let the fact that they're not in LA stop you from applying. It might work. I think that's one of the actual positives about the pandemic.
I love that, Kathy. Also, let's talk about looking outside of the norm. Let's talk a little bit about, the usual places is where we'll look, but how do you inspire somebody to look outside of the norm? How would she find a job in Denver? And for that matter, she could find a job in London and work here. How do you do that?
Here's my suggestion, and I have suggested this most of my professional life. I think the press really provides an avenue. And I'm not saying, look at want ads. I don't even think they're in the newspaper or press any longer. If you read about a company that has just acquired another company, it might mean that they're interested in growth. So look at your local press, look at national press, look at international press, because in those articles, it will tell you about movement of companies, what they're doing, how they're expanding, and find out who the head of the company is and send that person a note.
And by the way,
again, what?
I just want to add something to that, Adrienne, because I think a lot of people think that you have to go through HR or you have to go through recruiting, right? And you will eventually have to go that route to get your, through the process probably. But I would actually say Adrienne's advice of writing the head of the company is great, because the head of the company more often than your average manager, is going to pass that resume along to someone internally. And the person internally is going to take that application more seriously because it came from the CEO. We see this time and time again. And you don't even have to have a relationship with the CEO to get that to happen. There's an assumption that there may be a relationship, but also you've got to put your best foot forward if you're dealing with the CEO. So that that cover letter, which still matters, by the way. We get a lot of questions about that. Do cover letters still matter? Absolutely. That's where you tell your story. Your resume isn't going to be great at telling your story. The cover letter is going to be key, but make sure it's great and then send it to the CEO. And on that note, I've been saying this for 25 years. Job hunting is a numbers game. Absolutely a numbers game. You need to just realize that and set your expectations to knowing that. And you may have to send out 100 resumes and cover letters to get one call. And I know that sounds daunting and depressing, but if you think of it as the reality of the world, and it's been that way for 25 years, then maybe that will help in knowing and not getting upset when you don't hear back. When you send 5 resumes, you don't hear back anything. It's actually a numbers game.
All really good advice. I want to bring up another topic. So we're thinking about ourselves as a business. We've got our board of directors. We're doing a 360-degree view. We're helping people, no matter what, to help stay positive. And now I want to think about this word transformation. Everyone's talking about digital transformation. What does that mean? But let's talk about personal transformation. So what personal stories can we go through? And I want to say, because my background was in advertising and entertainment strategy and marketing, I, a few years ago, did a big pivot, and I now work at Tech Mahindra. How did I do that? There's stories that go on constantly. I have a good friend who was not working for 16 years because she was raising a family, and at 61 years old, she decided to go back in the marketplace, interviewed, got an amazing job as a general counsel at a top show that we see on TV constantly. And I'm not even sure she recognizes the amazing transformation that she just did, but it's such an inspiration. So I was wondering if you guys could talk a little bit about that as well.
Well, my advice to anyone listening, never give up. And I think that is important. Certainly individuals that want to raise their families for a while, that's certainly fine. But I am never going to give up, and that's part of my story. I love working. I love helping people, and that's just who I am. And I'm a little bit older than your friend who is 62 years old, but I don't think age has anything to do with it. In fact, to me, again, putting on this positive spin, I think it's a celebration of all the skills and talents you have. I think that's so very important. And that's how you sell your story.
And I will say that I think women especially often limit themselves when they're applying for jobs. And I think Adrienne brought this stat is that, women think they have to have 100% of the qualifications. Men think they have to have 60% of the qualifications to apply. So let's start really understanding our power here, especially in the environment. I got to say, in entertainment right now, I've been so impressed by the decisions that have been made of female leaders in this industry right now. Every time I open up Hollywood Reporter, there's a new female leader that has been installed. I've never seen this in this industry before. Now, tech might have a little ways to go, but I think they're coming. So I think we've got to know what we are putting out there. And if you think you're too old to work, and you're going to be wearing that, and that will be picked up on. So remember that your limiting thoughts are really in your head. Other people aren't looking at you that way unless you give them the opportunity to do so. So know your power. That's where that board of directors comes in. I got to say, when I was looking for a job and I was, getting my, well, you didn't make it this time or this time or this time, I would call my board of directors and I would say, I need to hear right now why I am good. Please tell me. And they would do that for me. And I'd be like, okay, good to go. Onward and upward. You need positive people to tell you how great you are. And I'll be that for you if I get to know you. But it's really, really important that you stay positive.
Kathy, I think you're great. Thank
you, Deb. You're on my board of directors too.
Mimi, let's think about this personal transformation for a minute. In that light, do you have any questions for Kathy and Adrienne before we kind of wrap today?
I mean, I would be, curious to know if you had any specific recommendations for how to create transformation in a way that shows other people that you have transformed. Like, how do you, my resume is what it is. I've had the experience that I've had. How do I sort of relay that transformation? Like, I've taken some digital marketing classes. Now, I don't think that helps me with the practical experience. If I apply for a job that says they want someone with 10 years of digital marketing, me saying, oh, I took a course doesn't do it. But how do you highlight that you have pivoted or are willing to pivot, or how do you show that your skills are adaptable to other industries? Do you guys have any advice for sort of how do you take your resume that, you've done what you've done? How do you highlight things that show that you can pivot to something else?
You have to be passionate about what you want to do. That's number one. As I said before, Mimi, you have an incredible resume. You need to pursue companies that will allow you to shine, consumer products, packaged marketing, which I said before. Those are phenomenal opportunities. And, as Kathy said, quite frankly, they're a little bit different than the entertainment industry because they haven't had these talented people like you. How wonderful it would be if you go and work for a company, I don't know, L'Oreal, and they really appreciate your value, your years of experience, your skill level. I think that's powerful, but you have to convince yourself that you're good enough to do it.
Well,
I do want to say too that, and it was really sort of playing off of something Adrienne said, don't look at the usual suspects. The usual suspects that you and I know right now have shrunk. They're like smaller. They've consolidated. They're building streaming networks. Go outside of our industry if you can. There are many adjacencies to our industry that you can look at and figure out who are those adjacent industries or businesses that would take advantage of your skills. And I'd be happy to help brainstorm with you on that. But I know you and I have a mutual friend who is a marketing maven. If you have somebody like that in your life, sit down with that person and have them help you create your story, because sometimes you get too close to it as your own self, right? You need that third party to really look at you like a product and to give you that information. So if on your board of directors you have a marketing person, that's who I would go to get some outside advice on how you're presenting your skills and how you're talking about what you've transformed. Because I know you've transformed things for sure, because you've been in this business too long to not have transformed something.
I'll tell you what, with 7 minutes left, let's wrap this and go to some questions. But Mimi, before we do that, could you tell us what key takeaways you got from today that might change?
Well, it's not, like a big thing. It sounds like, use a buddy to kind of help you highlight sort of your transformational skills, and transferable skills. It also sounds like, looking outside of my given industry is going to be really important. And, sort of, I think that this idea of a board of directors is really powerful too, is sort of having a team of people that you can rely on to sort of give you the truth. I would say those were my 3 key takeaways. Do you have anything? I'm sure you do. I know you kind of focused on a couple of nuggets if you want to recap those.
I'll actually go through the recording and send you back all the little golden nuggets that came from today. But Adrienne and Kathy, thank you so much for your words of wisdom here. I think this has been so valuable, and I feel so blessed to be amongst you. I'm going to turn this over to Astrid, I believe.
Well, actually, I think you ladies were so thorough in your responses that everybody was left kind of full of information. I do want to add, Mimi, that I've been through this too. I lost my job right before COVID, right before everything shut down. And I think all the recommendations that Adrienne and Kathy provided are extremely valuable. I was lucky enough to follow some of those recommendations without really knowing how valuable they were. There is light at the end of the tunnel, I promise. And I would definitely look outside your comfort zone. I was like, this is what I know. I know I'm good in those companies. And like, you always look for the big names because you want to add that to your resume. But there are a lot of startups out there that are ready to expand, especially in the digital world, because everything is being done digitally, that could use people like you because of your experience. And that's what they're craving. And it's actually really hard to find, right? So I think your background would be very valuable for smaller companies as well.
Also, Astrid, it might be interesting for you and Dilip to talk to Mimi about what you guys do at Born. I think she would be fascinating to talk to.
Mimi, I will definitely reach out to you. I'll also send you some links where I applied to, because LinkedIn is great to a certain extent, right? But you have Glassdoor and but I also looked into Built In, and it's Built In New York, Denver, and really
Yeah,
I looked into this. Sorry, what?
Yeah, the Built In.
And even looking remotely, that's what I did. Like, because everything's done remotely, nobody can go at the office is an opportunity here. So
let's turn this over to Ashwarya to give us a wrap.
Deb, could I do one thing though before we do that?
Yep.
I saw a question pop up on my screen, and I think it's something worth tackling really quickly. Probably mostly women on this call right now, I assume. And a lot of women are really struggling with all of their duties and responsibilities at home while they're trying to present a good face to the workplace. And it's really causing a lot of women to have to leave the workforce right now. And the advice that Adrienne and I think would give to people who are struggling is don't suffer in silence, have conversations, but be solution oriented. Try to get meetings scheduled around the lunchtime, or scheduled around it, not during the lunchtime, so that you can prepare lunch for your children. Try to get help to come in and watch the kids while they're in online school. I know these are not out of the box suggestions necessarily, but if you can stay in the workforce, this is temporary. And I really don't like seeing women leave the workforce right now, because it's going to be extremely tough to get back in. So please do what you can internally to have the right conversations with your leadership and your HR department to say, I'm struggling, I need help.
I so appreciate you bringing that up, Kathy. Thank you so much. Really important. All right, Ash, let's take it home.
Sure. To start with, our esteemed panelists, Adrienne and Kathy, and a special guest, Mimi, I am deeply grateful for your invaluable time, and there wasn't a single moment where we weren't fascinated by your immense knowledge and stories. Each one of you is truly a role model. Gratitude, they say, is one of the least articulate of emotions, especially when it is deep. But I'm going to try my best today, for I feel nostalgic already as I announce the end of season 1 of Women in Tech series. What started as a series to help women in challenging times has now become a topic close to our hearts. Each webinar left a very inspiring message, right from the Women Supporting Women webinar to the amazing second session, where panelists defined the meaning of being a woman in 2020. The art of career transition guided women in their careers, while the genius of gratitude was all music to our ears. And how can I forget the joyous gaming ride that women in gaming took us to? And today, with the survival of the fittest, I cannot imagine a perfect end to this season. Thanks a lot to each and every panelist who made these webinars a success. These 15 beautiful faces you see on the screen are my inspiration for sure. all of this was only possible because of the amazing teamwork that went in the background. Thanks a lot to Astrid, our superstar, for energetic welcomes that you see on every session. Yogesh for managing all the webinars, Debbie for all her efforts, meticulous planning, and amazing moderation throughout this session. And our very own Sumit, without whom none of this would have been possible. Last but not the least, extremely grateful for each and everyone who attended these sessions and for everyone's support to go ahead. We all are connected and addicted to such fun-filled, inspiring Fridays, today being an exception. We will surely be back soon with a powerful season 2 in January. From the entire team of Cable Media and Entertainment, we wish you good health and a wonderful holiday session. See you soon at the next season. Till then, stay safe. And that is a wrap. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.